Hello everyone. Today I would like to speak about the authentic being. What's the difference between confidence of an authentic being and the confidence of a narcissistic being? Because sometimes you may come across very confident beings. And again, we have to remember that when we experience this reality, it is just a moment. You see people in a moment, in a context. You don't know their entire life. You don't have such a clarity and ability to see them at all times. So you may assume they're confident because of the way they're dressed, because of the way they speak right now, and the way they behave. So very often we confuse real confidence with a mask of being confident. So in this video, I would like to speak a little bit about authenticity. Sometimes an authentic being may appear very confident and even to the point of very arrogant and, rude, because an authentic being, which is a rare being in this day and age, lives in alignment, in clarity, with their own truth. They don't need to validate themselves in the external reality. They are not looking for validation. They are not looking for support because they are autonomous within. Now, a narcissistic being has masks. So the confidence of a narcissist comes from a mask. But a narcissist is still codependent on an external reality. So a narcissist will always need validation from the external reality. That's where there is a codependency, because a narcissistic being, if one day someone asked me, how would you describe a narcissist? Well, in one expression, I feel like I'm nothing, or I'm nothing. So within a narcissist, there is constant feeling I'm not enough, or I need an external reality to validate me, to supply me with energy, because I cannot connect within myself, with my authentic self, and realign with that inexhaustible source of power and energy. And the reason of that is, of course, the trauma of the past, of whatever happened in the childhood. But this is not the topic of the video, because whatever the case, what happened made that person disempowered. They left somewhere that sense of self in the external reality. So at that moment, they were disturbed. Their alignment with the higher being was disturbed, and it stayed that way. And so with time, they needed to run to the external reality for more validation. With each year, they needed more and more validation from the external reality. And so they used to be dependent on the external reality. And external reality is anything, any element, any person. And so they got used to this constant validation from the external reality. And they lost the sense of natural, authentic self, which is content with oneself. So the narcissist is codependent on the external reality, and yet is in constant battle or resistance of this codependency. It's kind of like a love and hate relationship. And at the same time, it constantly needs a supply of vital energy. So a lot of people speak about supply, but what is this supply all about? It is about energy. It's about that vital energy that they do not get from within. That's why they need to control the external reality, because they need to control the supply. That's why the codependency, they hate to be codependent on the external reality, but they don't know any other supply. So the only way to heal and to restore one's true confidence and all is to not only admit that one is feeling that they are nothing, that's why they need the external reality and are codependent, and that's why they're trying to control, but to surrender and to trust in that natural flow, which is almost impossible for that person. So they will always lose confidence before authentic beings. So an authentic being may appear as selfish, as truthful, as rude, as arrogant, rough at times as well. If they try to establish proper boundaries with people, or they don't like something, they express it right away. A narcissist will appear confident, but in the communication they will suffer, because they will be calculating their communication, trying to understand where they can be rude and where they cannot, or how they can manipulate. And this is how we can understand whether we're dealing with an authentic being or a narcissistic being. A narcissistic being can be easily put down, because if they do not receive that validation that they're looking for, once they're dressed up well, they're dressed up well for others to see. Do they look at me? Do they validate me? Am I really sexy? Am I attractive? An authentic being dresses for themselves. They don't need other people's validation, because they know who they are. And the same goes to, or applies to, spiritual narcissism. A lot of people do not recognize that they are spiritual narcissists, which is almost the majority, because they hide behind the spiritual masks. Yet the truth is, they constantly look for teachers or teachings. That's how people end up jumping from one teaching or teacher to the other, because it's like jumping from one narcissistic relationship to the other, because there's a need for supply, because one validation is not enough. So there's a constant need for validation. Am I spiritually advanced? Have I achieved anything? Am I something? But it's all rooted at the point that I feel like I'm nothing. That's why I need someone to validate me, because a truly authentic and clear being, let's not put labels of enlightenment here, but a being who's truly evolving means a being who's restoring that authenticity within. It means, in other words, realigning with that higher being, which nurtures them and becomes like a fountain of inexhaustible energy. And that's why the codependency on the external reality wanes away, and the need for external reality to validate one's existence reduces to the point of non-existent. And in other words, it also could be called inner healing. So when one experiences sort of the decline or the decrease in a need to depend on the external reality, to validate oneself through the external reality, it means one is healing. One is going into the more and more alignment within oneself, within higher frequency, and one enters the point of self-cultivation. So when you look at the majority of people, they're still in the process of healing and realignment. They're not even cultivating themselves, because cultivation means I've lost all the need or codependency on the external reality to validate my sense of self. So I feel content, I feel authentic, I feel direct, I feel clear. And at that point, one receives a higher guidance, a higher form of guidance. So many people want a higher form of guidance, but they're not ready, because they're still in the process of self-healing. So we shouldn't, put the cart before the bull, because we have to allow the natural process of healing to take place before we start cultivating ourselves. And even when we cultivate ourselves, it doesn't mean that, again, our ego has to grow, or we are now cultivating, because then it means that you actually haven't really healed yourself. Because once you heal yourself, you become very humble, but at the same time extremely confident, extremely truthful, extremely content. You don't take any BS from anyone, and you do not need to please anybody to feel content. Yet if people do not cross your path or do not violate your boundaries, you are just content within yourself. You are not trying to hurt them. As long as people try to violate your boundaries, you will clearly tell them not to do so, because you're direct, you're authentic, you're not people pleaser or trying to, mask your lack of confidence or codependence. No, you will tell them, don't violate my boundaries, go. Because you're not dependent. You've developed natural sense of autonomy, A natural sense of autonomy is also a degree of freedom. So it is not this false freedom, I do what I want because I'm a rebel. No, because that's, again, it comes from an unstable sense of self. But an authentic being feels autonomous because it does not allow anything to validate it, because it's already content and knows who they are. So an authentic being does not need to run around asking others whether they're enlightened or not, or ask others whether they're good or bad, or whether they have this life in future or that life, because they are in alignment in the present moment. Their mind doesn't trauma bond with the external reality, nor depends on it. And that's the difference between an authentic and clear and liberating, or the mind which is on the path of liberation, in comparison with the mind which is in the illusion of liberation, which is still narcissistic and codependent and exhibits false confidence or some kind of a mask which is based on one's unrefined self, or in other words, exhibits spiritual hypocrisy. So I hope this video brought some people clarity. I wish everyone contentment, healing, and inner alignment. Thank you.